Oh, hi. I'm Adam Williams. I'm in Suzhou. I'm in the process of moving from wearing a jogging maths and business hat into an Adam Williams writer's hat. Because I've come to Suzhou. I've been in Shanghai for the last 2 days. Been seeing the foreign affairs people in Suzhou today. Now that's all over. I'm doing the final touches to my presentation, which I'll be giving to the Suzhou Bookworm tonight. The Suzhou Bookworm is a new organisation, and I'm going to be talking about a new book. It's great to be in Suzhou, one of the most beautiful cities in China.
And we're delighted to have our very first speaker who's going to christen the place tonight is Mr. Adam Williams. So after that, how can it go wrong?
It's a pleasure to be able to speak at this at the new Bookworm in Suzhou. I can't think of a better location for a library come literary club than Suzhou, the city of scholar gardens. And I'm glad to see that you are continuing the venerable traditions of the Beijing and Chengdu bookworms by co-locating your library with the best restaurant and watering hole in town. So my compliments. This is a very nice wine. Thank you, Peter. Now to begin. I mean, what I'd like to talk about today is my latest novel, The Dragon's Tail, as Peter said. There it is on the right. There we are. It's the third and final volume in a trilogy of novels, which I started writing about 10 years ago. And rather ambitiously, it sets out to tell the story of China's revolutions in the 20th century. Now, some of you may be wondering what possibly qualifies a Western businessman from a pompous company like Jardines to write historical novels about China. Well, I assure you, my publisher was asking the very same question. And when my agent, Araminta Whitley, saw the draft of my first book, The Palace of Heavenly Pleasure, she told me that if I'd given her exactly the same manuscript but had lived all my life in, say, Canterbury, she wouldn't have taken it. Authors, even of historical fiction, need authenticity. Well, I've lived in China for 20 years, 22 years of my working life, in Greater China for 54 if you count Hong Kong where I was born, and not only that, I'm the fourth generation of a family that's been residing in Beijing, Tianjin and Dongbei on and off since the 1890s. It's this family folklore and personal experience I've shamefully mined for my stories. As a boy in Hong Kong, I was sometimes taken on a schoolboy's outing to visit an army post on the border, and I watched Red Guards waving their books of Mao's thoughts. It was by then the radical end of the 60s, so I was excited by the idea of revolution and went to China products stores and bought my own copy of the Little Red Book. Well, in the 70s, as a journalist in Hong Kong, I met people coming out of China after the fall of the Gang of Four, and they had horrific tales to tell of that cultural revolution, which had so bewitched students like me. And I realized that the idealistic protesters of my generation, who carried Mao's face down the Rue Saint-Germain or through university campuses, had never suspected that the reality of China's intoxicating revolution was this. Or this. Or this. That wonderful Taoist individualism and honesty, which no regime, Confucian, imperial, or communist, can ever extinguish. Well, I tried to incorporate some scenes like that into The Dragon's Tail. I hope you enjoy it. I confess there were sections of this book that were quite painful to write. Anyway, we seem to stray a little from the subject of this talk, which was my family history, but not too far. For one way or another, members of my family have been living China's history from near or far for more than 100 years. My family story and the fictions in my novel only coincide in parts. But if it had not been for wild Katie Newmarch and Dr. Muir and his sons and the diffident Guy, I would never have thought up the sea change stories I did. I've dedicated my books to my grandmother and to all my family who lived in those turbulent times. I'm proud of that heritage. It impelled me to live and work in China, as my forebears had done. Ultimately, it made me want to write. I hope you enjoy my story. I hope you get to like my heroine Catherine in Bones. If you spot a touch of kindness beneath her sometimes irritating unconventionality, you'll know where it came from. I hope you like the surly Harry in The Dragon's Tale.
It's certainly not me, but he and I have shared some experiences. This is one of the last photos taken of my grandmother before she died. There are 4 China generations here. It's the end of one journey, the beginning of another. Stories never truly end.